I hope your week is off to a great start. This video is going to be following in the footsteps of a couple videos that I've done this month. There was one a couple weeks ago where I talked about being a cog in a machine and how maybe the best thing we can do in life is to become the biggest cog possible in the machine, to become as important as possible to everyone around us. And then a few days ago I made one about your purpose in life being a burden and how you need to find this burden and put it upon yourself. That maybe trying to find purpose in life by finding the thing that makes you happiest might mislead you a little bit. I saw a few comments from people saying, well, even just finding a purpose, even just finding the burden, the thing that I can do seems hard because my life seems sort of just like I'm existing, and the things that I want to achieve, the goals that I come up with are so big, and it feels like I'm not making a difference when I do stuff. It feels like my life is pointless because I can't change the world, basically. And maybe even if I did change the world, what good would it do in the end? Like, what's the end goal here? And this is the problem if you are oriented towards seeing things in the big picture, because you're not going to be thinking about how can I make a difference in the lives of the people around me right now, or a couple of people that I see every day. It's going to be how can I make a difference to the world? And that's how I'm oriented. And so that's what I've always wanted to do, is to have a huge impact on the world and to reach lots of people and to change people's lives fundamentally somehow. I don't know how, but I've just always wanted to make a big difference. And when you go through your day-to-day life, though, you don't see that. At best, you see yourself making a difference a little bit in the lives of people around you, the few people you see in a day. And I think this has more to do with just our perspective in life rather than anything deficient within us, because you're thinking ahead if you are feeling like you don't make a difference. You're thinking from the point of view of human history, which is kind of a fallacy, because you're not going to be able to see it. If you're lucky, maybe you'll get to see it when you're older and you can look back and see, oh, this is how I changed stuff. But even so, not everyone can be Dr. Salk and come up with the polio vaccine. Not everyone can be Martin Luther, nailing the 95 Theses to the wall or to the door of the church. Not everyone can be the old guys and space cowboys flying to an asteroid and blowing it up to save Earth. And not everyone can even be George Bailey, who just through his existence in the movie It's a Wonderful Life and through all the things that he did through his business in town kind of saved everyone in the town from a much worse life. Not everyone can have even that immediate of an impact in their lives. And that's okay, because on the one hand, I don't know if it's ever possible to truly know the impact that you will have. Maybe if you zoomed out far enough, you'd be able to see it. But on the other hand, I think if you zoom out, how many times have I said on the other hand? On the other hand, if you zoom out far enough from anyone's life, does any of it matter? And that's the other thing that came up. It's like, well, what are we all aiming at here? Even if I did save the world from an asteroid, a million years in the future, what does it matter if another asteroid comes along, or when the sun goes out finally? Of course, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. I mean, people 50 years ago couldn't have even predicted the internet. So to think that we can predict what's going to happen a million years in the future, I don't think we can even predict what's going to happen 20 years in the future. We just don't know. And I'm an optimist. I think it's always going to be better. And so at the very least, I think by living your life the best that you can, even if you don't feel like you're making a difference, as long as you're just doing things that are positive rather than actively negative, and you're trying to constantly leave the world in a better place than when you found it. Not just like when you die, but every day when you come across new things, new people, new places in the world, if there's some way that you can make some small little impact, because it's not just you, it's everyone. Before I develop this thought further, why don't we stop for a commercial break? Before any movie buffs run to the comments section to correct me, let me issue my own correction. That in the movie Space Cowboys, of course, they were not saving the Earth from an asteroid, but they were in fact saving the Earth from some nuclear missiles that were on an old Soviet satellite. How could I have made such an error? Stay tuned for future inaccurate movie reviews on my channel. Because it's not just you, it's everyone. So I'm a big believer in the individual, in the person, and I think on a civic level, on a legal level, when we're talking about how citizens are viewed by the government, individualism is very important, and people shouldn't be grouped together. But if we're going to talk about in the metaphysical world, if we're going to talk about humanity from like a spiritual perspective, if you're going to zoom out far enough, I think you can't look at the individual anymore. You can't just think about yourself as a single unit. I mean, yes, you are a single unit in terms of the expression of human life, but I think it's better maybe to think of it as humanity as a whole, as one organism, and each part of it needs to work together, and some parts are going to be, cancerous. Some parts of humanity are not going to try to help the rest. They're not going to be a positive influence. But, I mean, unless you're murdering people in your spare time, unless you're actively trying to be a negative influence, I think more than likely you're being a positive influence. And, it can be difficult when you feel like you're not actively working towards some kind of good, some kind of improvement in the world, but maybe take a little bit of that burden off of yourself, just off of your shoulders. Maybe it's too big of a burden, and to realize that you're part of a bigger system. This is not to get religious here, but there's a passage in the New Testament that talks about the body and how, an ear can't say it's better than an eye, or what if the body was all made out of an ear, or it was just an ear? It wouldn't make sense. You need all these different parts that are working together. And I don't mean to make this some trite platitude about we're all in this together. That's not what I'm saying, but it's sort of just to have this faith that maybe, yeah, my life seems maybe mundane. It seems like pointless almost. Like maybe I'm just going through the motions, but you just don't know what the grand scheme of things is. You don't know. Your life is a thread that runs through the tapestry of humanity as a whole, and you don't know what other threads are touching what you're holding together. It might seem like your thread isn't that important. You just don't know, and you have to kind of let go of wanting to know and have some faith that maybe ultimately it's important, that if your thread was taken from it, taken out of the larger thing, that other things would have come frayed, And sometimes the negative thought can creep into your head that your life is a net negative on the world. Especially it happens to me when I accidentally cause something bad to happen. I'm like, man, I just wish I wasn't around. This bad thing wouldn't have happened. Even if it's something as simple as making a mistake at work where it like maybe costs someone a little money. I mean, that's trivial. I've occasionally made mistakes like that where, a couple $100 maybe was incurred because of a mistake I made. Like nothing that big, but it's like, oh man, I'm just not doing any good here. or something maybe a little bit more tragic, like a little bird flies across the road at an inopportune time, and you feel bad that you've had this destructive force accidentally. It's like you weren't even trying, and that's especially what can make you feel like you should just get out of here, is when you accidentally cause some kind of destruction. But it's not an easy thing, because I can't give you an answer and say you're doing good, you're great. I'm saying you can't know, and you need to have faith that the big picture kind of takes care of itself, and it's not up to the eye. It's not up to the nose to make sure that the whole rest of the body is okay. Or you can think of it in terms of notes of music. One note is like meaningless, it doesn't mean anything, but when you play it with other notes, the sum of the notes is way different than each of them individually. You play one note and then play another note separately, it's just two notes. You play them together, and then there's this extra element, this harmony between them that is like this thing, this resonance that is created that is different from either one of them. It's this kind of, you know what I'm trying to say. The harmony is this new thing that emerges from two or more notes being played together, and that's in terms of humanity, that harmony is something that we can't actually see necessarily. We know we're a note. We know that other people are notes. And the harmony that comes from it, that's the meaning. And it's not always something that we can figure out just by seeing the notes. This has been a little scattershot, but from what I've heard, you all like that sort of thing. I'm not sure if this was depressing or if this or if this helps out, because I'm not coming at this necessarily from a position of knowing what I'm talking about. I feel like it's something I struggle with too. I guess the takeaway is realize that your big picture thinking is not helping you when you have an existential crisis. It's going to plunge you into a dark place. So it's much better to look at just what are you doing in your day-to-day life. Let's start small. Are you thanking the bus driver? Let's start small. Thanks for watching. Tomorrow's video might be a little lighter, just to switch it up, give you a change up, throw you a curveball. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. I'll see you tomorrow. We can talk.